Hello viewers, welcome to K Diagnostics, Dio here. Today we have a 2013 Mercedes Sprinter with a 3.0 liter. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light remains on the dash while the engine is running. The ABS light remains on, the traction control light remains on, and the van is losing power tremendously. So the customer brought it to us so we can figure out what's causing these lights to remain on the dash. I want to mention that the owner of this vehicle is one of my subscribers, Mike Scott. Mike Scott found one of my videos on YouTube. He emailed me. We emailed back and forth. I sent him my number, and after that he decided to bring his vehicle to us so we can fix it. So I would like to thank Mike Scott for bringing business to us. So now let's go in the vehicle and confirm the customer's complaint. I have to mention that this van was at a different shop. Mike told me that he took this van to a shop and they tried fixing the problem. It stayed there for a while and then he decided to bring it here, okay? So that's something we have to keep in mind because I see some wires hanging over there and this cover over here is missing. And I see a fuse over there. Okay, there's a fuse down there on the floor. So someone was doing some stuff here. So let's start the engine. So the check engine light is on. The ABS light went off right there. Actually, it just came back on. Okay, so ABS light is on. Traction control light is on and brake light is on as well. Okay, so customer's complaint confirmed. I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key on. I'm gonna bring up our scan tool. Since we are focusing on the ABS system first, let's scan the ABS control unit and see what we got. The scan tool has identified the vehicle. Everything looks good. So let's do a code scan. Let's scan all the control units on the vehicle and see what we got. We only have one code in the engine computer and our code is P11C900. No CAN message was received from control unit N30/4 ESP control unit. So it looks like the engine computer is not able to talk to the ABS control unit. And we have a communication trouble code in the transmission control unit as well. Oh, my scan tool battery is about to die. So let's scroll down and see what else we have. We have a bunch of trouble codes over here. Okay, so lost communication with brake system control module A. So if you look at everything over here, so all these control units, okay, this list over here, one thing I have noticed right off the bat is we don't have the ABS control unit listed over here. Okay, so as you can see, we have the engine computer, we have the transmission computer, airbag, electronic ignition switch, but no ABS. Okay, so when a control unit is not listed on a list of control units, the issue can be a power or ground problem, okay, or a communication wire issue. So let's back out. So now let's try to go to the ABS control unit. Let's try to communicate with it. Let's see if we can talk to it. Continue. So now we are requesting the scan tool to talk to the ABS control unit. And as you can see, it says no communication. Is key on? Yes. The key is on right now on the dash. And we cannot talk to the ABS control unit. Okay. So we have a no COM problem with the ABS control unit. Okay. Now, you guys have seen me diagnose these type of issues before. When you have a control unit that's not communicating, your problem can be no ground to that control unit, no power, to that control unit or an open in the communication wires between the control unit and the network. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to locate our ABS control unit. We're going to get to it and check our powers and grounds at the ABS control unit. Okay, or to keep it low tech first, we can find the fuses that supply power to the ABS control unit and check those fuses first. Okay, so now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our service info and check our wiring diagram. I'm pretty familiar with these sprinters. So these sprinters have two powers at the ABS control unit. There is a constant power and a switched power, an ignition power, and they have two ground wires. Okay, actually I don't even have to look this up because I already know where these wires are, but I'm just going to show you in case you have a question. Okay, because I've done a lot of these. The ground wires will be brown on the ABS control unit, and then the power wires will be red. So let's go to anti-lock brakes. So right here we're going to go to the ABS control unit first. So over here is our ABS control unit. As you can see here, we have one ground wire. Okay, it's brown. I don't know why it says brown, then it turns yellow, but usually they're brown. Okay, so brown, yellow, and brown. So we're going to check this wire. This is our first ground. It's pin 2. And then we have a brown wire here, pin 13. And then we have another one, brown and white, pin 38. So this ABS control unit has 3 ground wires. Now it should have 2 power wires. So this wire over here, this red wire with a white tracer, if I highlight it, you see it's going up. If we follow it, it's going to a fuse. So right here, fuse number 4. And this is a 40 amp fuse. And it says fuse block 1. So this fuse is in fuse block number 1. And then the second one, which is this one, I'm going to highlight it. Fuse 3. It's a 25 amp fuse. And if we follow it, it goes over here. It goes to pin 26. Okay? Okay, and these over here are our communication wires. Okay? So this one, communication wire, and this one. So let's get to the ABS control unit. Usually what I like to do with these ABS control units, it's actually easier, in my opinion, to check powers and grounds at the ABS control unit than trying to find these fuses. Okay, so there isn't a specific way of doing this. You can go to the fuses first and check the fuses. You can go straight to your wiring and do your checks at the ABS control unit. That's usually how I like to do it. So I'm gonna get to this ABS control unit. We're gonna open the connector cover and get access to these wires. We're gonna check our powers and grounds there. If we don't have power and ground at these wires, then we're gonna work our way back to the fuse. I mean, if we are missing power on one of these wires. Okay, so now let's go under the hood and do some checks at the ABS control unit. All right, guys, we are here under the hood. Here is our ABS control unit. We're gonna disconnect its connector. Oh, check this out. The connector cover just came out. Like I said earlier, someone was here trying to fix this. So hopefully they didn't cause a lot of damage. Now, I always like to come straight to the ABS control unit if I'm checking powers and grounds of the ABS control unit, because getting to this connector is fairly easy and getting to the wires is pretty straightforward too. So I'm going to disconnect this. Let's see what we got. Oh man, look at these wires. There's a wire here that's actually out of the insulation. This red wire here.
I don't know which wire is this, but see this wire here? Interesting. So we're gonna check our powers and grounds at the connector first. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a test light so we can check our powers and grounds. Now, these two red wires should be our power wires, and then the brown wires down here, these two heavy gauge brown wires, should be our ground wires. So I'm gonna get a test light. So here's our test light. I'm gonna connect my test light to battery power, just like that. If I touch ground, my test light should light. Right there, as you can see, our test light is lit up. So let's test our ground wires first. So these two brown wires here should be our ground. So I'm gonna touch the first one. So I'm gonna carefully front probe this right there. As you can see, our test light lights. So we have good ground on this wire. Now we're gonna test the second one. So just like that, we have good ground on the second ground wire. So that's good. So now we're gonna test our power supply wires. This ABS control unit should have 3 power supply wires. 2 will be constant powers, and then 1 is gonna be ignition power. Okay, 1 should have power with the key on. So now we're gonna test these 2 wires. I'm gonna touch the first one. Test light is connected to ground. If I touch power, my test light is gonna light. Okay, so just like that. So now let's test this one. We got power there. We got power here. Okay, so these 2 power supply wires have power. Now we're gonna test our third power, which is gonna be ignition power. So if you wonder how I know about all these wires, it's because, I do a lot of sprinters, and also I have a wiring diagram pulled up here just to double check, but I pretty much know where all these wires go. So we checked these 2 wires over here. Okay, we checked pin 1, and the other one I believe is pin 25. So we checked these 2. So now we're gonna check this wire, pin 32. It's a black wire with a red tracer. Okay. It won't highlight. Okay. So now we're gonna check wire 32 or pin 32. So it's this one over here. I'm going to back probe it. Let me get my back probe tool over here. So we're gonna back probe this wire. Okay, so I'm gonna connect my test light to it. My test light is connected to ground. Right now my test light is not lit up because the key is off. I'm gonna go in the van and turn the key on. If we have power at that wire with the key on, my test light is gonna light. So now let's go turn on the key. So let's turn the key on. So key is on. Let's go to the van and see what we got. So right there, as you can see, our test light is lit. So we have power on that wire. Now let's turn the key off. So key is off and the test light is also off. So that's good. So apparently the ABS control unit is getting power and ground. So this ABS control unit should be able to communicate. It should talk. Well, we have 2 more wires that we have to test, okay? And the wires we have to test now are our communication wires, okay? Our ABS control unit could be getting power and ground, but if we have an open in the communication lines, it's not going to be able to talk to the other control units, Okay. Now our communication lines are these two green wires over here. Okay, so we're going to back probe these two green wires. One of them is going to be a green and a white tracer, and then the other one is going to be a solid green. Okay, so we're going to back probe these two wires, and I'm going to bring up our lab scope. We're going to connect our lab scope to these two back probing tools so we can see what kind of signals we have on the communication wires, because the ABS control unit uses those two wires to talk to the other control units on the van. Since the ABS control unit is disconnected, when we connect our scope to these two back probing tools, we should see the message coming from the other control units to the ABS control unit. Okay, so when we turn the key on, we should see some voltages, okay, or data packets on these two CAN lines. Okay, so now I am going to get my lab scope out so we can test those two communication wires. We have an ABS control unit that's receiving power and ground, but it's not communicating with the rest of the control units on the vehicle. So I'm gonna grab our lab scope leads. We're gonna connect our test leads to the lab scope first. Okay. We're gonna ground our scope test lead. We're gonna connect the first one to the first back probing tool here. And then the second one is gonna be connected here. Okay, so just like that, we can leave the control unit unplugged. So now let's set up our lab scope. So we're gonna turn on our first two channels. I'm going to drop my voltage down to 10 volts for now. Okay. So now I'm gonna go in the vehicle and turn the key on. Okay, so right here, we do have a message on our data lines. This waveform over here looks good to me. Okay, we have good communication on our CAN lines at the ABS control unit. Okay, so the unit is unplugged. Okay, and these messages are coming from the other modules on the network. Okay, so let me decrease our voltage scale here so we can see more detail. Okay, so look how nice and clean these pockets are. Okay, look at this. Okay, so our communication waveform looks good. Okay, look at this nice acknowledgement spike over here. So look at that. So this is good. Okay, we don't have a problem in the network. So the fact that we have this voltage over here at the ABS control module electrical connector tells me that the rest of the communication circuit is good. Okay, the message that's coming from the other modules is making it to the ABS control unit. Okay, so the ABS control module is not responsive. So this module is bad. I believe the ABS control module is bad because it has power, it has ground, the communication lines are good, but it's not talking. So it's bad. Okay, so I'm going to unfreeze this now. As you can see, everything looks good. Now I'm going to reconnect our ABS control unit. Let's see if these pockets will be different when we reconnect our ABS control unit. So we're gonna carefully plug this back in. Okay, our ABS control unit is connected. Oh, I see a difference. Look at this. Our waveform is changed. Our waveform is now ugly. Oh man, this ABS control unit is bad. Okay, look at this now. You see how we now have a little slope over here? Okay, you see there's now a slope here, and our waveform now looks weird. It looks ugly. Okay, so this ABS control unit is defective. Yeah, look at that. We did not have this slope when the ABS control unit was disconnected. Okay, so look at this. Look how bad this looks. Okay, so the ABS control unit is corrupting the network. It's not pulling it down, but it's corrupting the message on the network. And then one thing I'm noticing is even the acknowledgement high spike on these data pockets is no longer present. Like, you cannot see it. Because before, I mean, you can see it a little bit here. Okay, but it has decreased, and there's now a slope over here. Okay, there's now a slope over here, and it looks weird. So we're gonna unfreeze this. So the ABS control unit is definitely corrupting our network. Okay, it's corrupting the messages. So as you can see, you see the slope, right? Now I'm going to unplug the ABS control unit. If our voltages or our communication waveform gets better, that will be once again a confirmation of this module being bad. So this is unplugged. Let's see what we got. You see how it's now nice. Okay, it's got better. Let's pause this. You see all of a sudden the slope has disappeared, and our acknowledgement spike over here is more pronounced. Okay, you see how it's nice and square, no slopes. I mean, you can tell the difference. Okay, this looks nice and clean. Okay, let's unfreeze this. So this is what a good communication waveform looks like. Okay, nice and clean. Now let's reconnect the ABS control unit. Okay, look at that. Now we have this weird slope over here. See that? Okay, so when we reconnect our ABS control unit, our CAN bus messages get corrupted. Okay, let's disconnect it again. So now let's look at the scope. Right there, our message looks good. Okay, so that's it, guys. We can make the call. Okay, the ABS control unit is defective. We are done with our diagnosis. This van needs a new ABS control unit. The ABS control unit on this van is defective. The ABS control unit is not communicating. It has power and ground. The communication lines are good. We have good messages on our CAN bus network when the ABS control unit is unplugged. But when we plug it in, it corrupts the messages on the CAN bus network, okay? Which once again confirms to us that the ABS control unit is bad. So to fix this, we're gonna have to get a different ABS control unit. I'm going to recommend a original equipment ABS control unit. We're gonna have to get an ABS control unit from Mercedes
And after we get that, we're gonna have to program it to the van, and after that, all will be well, okay? I tried installing a used or a remanufactured ABS control unit on one of these sprinters, and I haven't had good luck with those. So I'm gonna recommend the customer to go with an OEM one. I know it's not cheap, it's expensive, but sometimes it's worth it spending more dollars to avoid the headache in the long run, okay? So I'm gonna call the customer and let him know we're gonna get an ABS control unit. I'll bring you guys back up once we get another ABS control unit so we can wrap up this video. Actually, I might have a used ABS control unit laying around here that I was gonna install in a different van a while back. Actually, it didn't work. I had a van here that had the same issue, kind of just like this one. The ABS control unit was bad. I got a used ABS control unit online. I installed it. I was able to communicate with the ABS control unit. We programmed it, but the lights could not go off on the dash. We had to buy an OEM new ABS control unit to get the lights to go off on the dash. So let me look for that control unit here in the shop. Hopefully I can find it. If it's the same connector, we're gonna connect it to this van to see if our scan tool will now be able to talk to that control unit. If it can talk to that control unit, that will be just another indication. You know, at this point, we're just checking, double checking, and triple checking ourselves, okay? Let me see if I can find that ABS control unit. Hopefully it's the same connector, okay? So we can, you know, check this out once again before we order a new one. So I'm gonna look for that unit and then I'll bring you guys back up. I looked around the shop and I found the old ABS control unit that I was talking about. Okay, here it is. I use this ABS control unit for testing purposes. Okay, but you don't wanna install this on the vehicle. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect this control unit to the electrical connector of this ABS control unit. So we're gonna connect this to the vehicle and see if our scan tool is gonna talk to it. We already did our test. The wiring is good. Once we connect this ABS control unit to the vehicle, we should be able to talk to it, okay? After we talk to it with the scan tool, I'm gonna go ahead and order a new ABS control unit for this van, okay? We already done with our testing. I know that if we put a new ABS control unit on this van, it's gonna be fixed, but I just wanna check and double check myself before I order a brand new ABS control unit, because this unit is very expensive. So we have to be sure that the part that we're gonna install is definitely needed, okay? So now I'm gonna connect this to the vehicle so we can do our last test. So now we're gonna get this ABS control unit connected. So just like that, we're gonna leave it right over here. Okay, the wiring is good. We have power and ground at the ABS control unit, and our communication wires are good. So we should be able to talk to this ABS control unit. So now let's look at the scan tool and read some codes out of this ABS control unit. I'm gonna go in the vehicle and turn the key on. So key is on. So now let's see if we can communicate with this ABS control unit. So my scan tool is connected to the vehicle. So we're gonna go to scanner. So we're gonna go straight to the ABS control unit. Remember before we had a no com message when we were trying to talk to the ABS control unit. So let's see if we can communicate with this. So we're gonna click continue. Oh, bingo, right there. We can talk to this ABS control unit. So we cannot talk to the ABS control unit that's on the vehicle, that's connected to the lines, but we can talk to this one, okay? So we have a bad ABS control unit. Now let's see if we can read codes out of that ABS control unit. So we have 11 trouble codes on our used ABS control unit. Let's scroll down. We have some wheel speed sensor trouble codes here. Okay, now these codes can just be because of the ABS control unit. This unit is used, it's not good, okay? I just use it to test circuits here around the shop, but I would not sell this to the customer, okay? We're gonna have to get a new ABS control unit for this van. Now, since we have wheel speed sensor trouble codes on the scan tool, okay, there is a possibility that we have bad wheel speed sensors on this van. Because the ABS control unit is defective, we could not talk to it. So when we cannot talk to an ABS control unit on the vehicle, it's hard to know what other problems we might have in that system, okay? So now that we know that we can talk to this ABS control unit, this tells us that the wiring on the van side is good. The problem is the ABS control unit. To fix this, we're gonna have to replace the ABS control unit, okay? So at this point, we are done. I'm gonna back out of here. Okay, so we're done. I'm going to order a new ABS control unit. I don't recommend aftermarket or used ABS control units on these sprinters, especially when it comes to sprinters. I recommend OEM control units. We're gonna get a OEM ABS control unit, and after we install it, this is gonna be fixed. So I'm gonna call the Mercedes dealership so we can get a brand new ABS control unit. After we get the ABS control unit, I'm gonna bring you guys back so that I can show it to you. I'm gonna install it. I'm probably not gonna show you the process of removing and replacing the ABS control unit. When you get a unit from Mercedes, I believe it comes with the whole ABS pump, so it's gonna be the whole assembly. Once I get it, we're gonna disconnect the lines over here under the hood. We're gonna connect the new one to the brake lines. We're gonna have to bleed all the calipers around the vehicle, and after that, we should be good to go. Now, one side note is we might have a problem with our wheel speed sensors, okay? Because we have wheel speed sensors on that other ABS control unit. So there is a possibility that we have bad wheel speed sensors in this van. I'm not gonna worry about that right now. Let's replace our ABS control unit first, and then we're gonna see what codes come back. Then we're gonna deal with them as we go, okay? So right now, let's stick to the ABS control unit. I'm gonna get a new ABS control unit from Mercedes, and then I'll bring you guys back up.